Hello and welcome to Maldorma TV. My name is Magnus Ahlberg.
And I'm Tobias Ahlberg, and this is episode 20.
And today we're going to talk about the Indian yogi called Sri M, which we met in March last year, 2017, in the Swiss Alps at a retreat called Villa Unspunnen.
Yeah, it was a weekend retreat where he held his satsangs, and he also introduced some spiritual practices that you can do. And we're going to talk about that and also a little bit of who he is and his background and how we got in contact with him, because that's an interesting story.
Yeah, because none of us had heard about him a few years ago. But I was looking at some video on YouTube and kind of came across a video of him, an interview. And I just randomly clicked on it and to see what it was. And he was interviewed by, I think it was a British guy or something like that.
Yeah, it's the Soul Yearns video, I think.
Okay, yeah. And actually, I wasn't that impressed of him in the beginning. My first impression was that he was a fake, because he did talk about some interesting topics. It sounded like he knew some interesting things, but he also did some kind of magic trick, and I felt, well, this is just a guy that's up for the show, trying to get followers that way. So I dismissed him quite early on.
Yeah, and if you go on YouTube or in India as well, there's so many fake gurus out there, and so it's really hard to know which ones are authentic and which ones are fake.
And he didn't really feel genuine to me. But then something happened, something quite peculiar. We had one of our psychedelic journeys. And for some reason, I came to think about him during one of these sessions. And I was at the moment in contact with what I experienced then as a God. So I actually asked God about Sri M, and he said, well, he's the real deal. He's just pretending, he's just putting up this show with the magic tricks and all that to actually sort out the wrong people that don't listen to their intuition, only go with the visuals, what they see. So, and I was, okay, yeah, perhaps that's true, that I was actually judging him from my ego and not really feeling him from my heart. And then I realized, okay, maybe he is the real deal, and I became more curious about him.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he talks a lot about this in his book, where he mentions in the book that that he purposely can hide his true state of being, if you will. Yeah, so that's quite interesting. And I remember that you sent over the video to me, and I also watched it, and I was also a bit skeptical towards it as well in the beginning. But for the same thing for me, I also got, during a psychedelic experience, he popped up again. And what I was told by the psychedelic experience is that he's here to basically help humanity to wake up, to guide people through consciousness and discover what they really are.
And also, if I remember correctly, during these psychedelic experiences, we were kind of told that we should meet him. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And even though before this psychedelic experience, there was something about him that actually pulled in both of us for some reason. We didn't really like him, but he kind of popped up from time to time anyway. And I couldn't really let go of him. I thought about him from time to time. Very interesting.
Yeah, same here. And it's, as you said, he popped up on a number of occasions. I completely forgot about him. And later on, he would just pop up in my mind, or I have an experience with him. And it took quite a long time before any of us read his book. And I think that was like the changing point for us, really.
Yeah. He wrote this book, The Apprentice of a Himalayan Master.
Yeah.
his first book. He has written several books, but he has this autobiography in 2 parts. One was released quite recently, but the first book wasn't. When we met him, he had only released the first part of the autobiography, and he has written some smaller books as well. I have not read any of those. I have written the 2 autobiographies.
And it's a really interesting book because it starts out with him basically in his youth. He goes out into the garden and he finds a man there just asking him to come over. And it's in his back of the garden, and he had no idea why this man was here or who he was, but he had this strange pull to go and talk to this man in the garden. And I think he said something that he really didn't understand, and then he just went away. And his life is filled with meeting very special people.
Extraordinary meetings. And it's such an amazing story. And he was a Muslim boy in southern India who, when he was quite young, had this really strong pull towards the Himalayas. So he walked pretty much a long distance and up to, I think it was Kedarnath, where he eventually met his guru. And it's a amazing story. And
and it was the same man that he had met in his backyard.
As a
guru,
child.
The guru that he found several years later up in the Himalayan mountains. And the book really starts after that. I don't think we want to spoil the book too much, but what he experienced and the teachings in the book, it's really an amazing book. And it's I think fans of autobiography of a yogi, I think will also really appreciate and love this book. So I can really recommend that you check it out.
It's an amazing story about the spiritual India in many ways, because he traveled a lot and met so many different saints and people. And and also we could mention briefly that his guru was a direct disciple to the Mahavatar Babaji, the guy in the painting right there that Swami Yogananda made famous in the West, basically. And he has met him twice in his life, as I understood it.
And his guru was Maheshwar Babaji, which is a direct disciple, as you said, to Mahavatar Babaji. And I think he also mentions in the book that he was previously, in a previous incarnation, he was a direct disciple to Mahavatar Babaji, or Sri Guru Babaji, as he mentioned him in the book. So when it came around the possibility to go meet him, we instantly felt like, we need to do this.
You noticed on his website, right, that he was going to hold this workshop or weekend retreat in Europe. And it's quite near, so we decided to go. And this was actually, I think, 1 or 2 weeks before we went to India.
And it's a good point, because a lot of the places that we have talked about and went to visit during our trip to India was due to the what Sri Hem had encountered on his journey and what he mentions in the book.
We decided when we planned the journey to India to go to Rishikesh, and a lot of the places that we visited was entirely because of Sri Hem's book and
autobiography of a Himalayan yogi.
The apprentice of
whatever it's called. Apprentice to an Himalayan master.
Exactly.
And I think it was really interesting to follow his footsteps, to have read the book previously and knew this is what happened here with his guru and so forth. And it was just amazing.
We went to Divine Life Society because of him, and the Vashishta Cave. The 2 caves that are next to it, Vashishta Cave, and do you remember what Arundhati Cave?
Arundhati Cave.
Something like that, And also, did we go somewhere else that was because of Sri Hem? I don't remember. But it's on. You can look at previous episodes in this podcast, our journey to India podcast.
So We arrived to Switzerland, and the retreat was at a place called Villa Unspunnen, and beautiful place.
In the Alps.
Really nice scenery around with the mountains and everything like that. So it was really a perfect place to have this retreat and to meet him.
Yeah, and our first encounter with 3M was quite special, to say the least. I remember that we walked into Villa Unspunnen, which is a building owned by this spiritual famous woman in Switzerland, I think. And I don't remember her name right now.
We'll put it in the description.
Yeah, I think so. But however, he was standing with his back towards me, talking to some people. And I was looking at him, and suddenly he just turned around and my feeling, I felt like he knew I was there and looked straight into my eyes. And I was like, I can't really describe it. As I said, it felt like he already knew I was standing there and just turned around to say, I know you're here. And just looked straight into her eyes, and then he just turned back and started talking to these people again. Yeah. And the moment after, he did pretty much the same thing with you.
Yeah, it was really strange because he had talked to the people and you were in one room.
Yeah, and you didn't know that I had this experience.
No. And I was in the other part in a different room, all by myself. Yeah. And he walked past me, past the room. Yeah. And he had his back towards the room I was standing in. Then he just stopped. Yeah. Like dead in his tracks, and just turned around 180 degrees, looked me in the eyes, and it was like an electric shock. Yeah. Like when he looked at you, it's like BAM! And I didn't know what happened, but he just looked at me for a glimmer of a second and turned his around 180 degrees and kept walking. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, exactly as you said, you just knew I was there, and I didn't make any noise. I didn't say anything to him or anything that he could have knew that I was there. So that was just a powerful experience.
And the feeling I had, and I think you had the same, was that in a way he wanted to show us that he knew that we was there, and just confirm in some way that I know you're here. And
because you had met him and he talked to other people, and when he started walking away from me, I instantly got this feeling, oh no, I missed him. Yeah. I wanted to say hello or at least acknowledge him, but I thought I had missed him, and he just turned around 180 degrees, looked at me dead in the eyes, and just walked away.
Because we knew that we were supposed to meet him because of the previous experience that we had on the psychedelic sessions. Yeah. So it was quite a remarkable start. But then, for the most part, he's like this everyday man, nothing really special about him. He's a kind, very soft man. Is it like? But he's not like in the last episode when we talked about Ramdas and Krishnadas. When I met Ramdas, he had this huge presence that made this huge impact. Yeah, Shreyam was nothing like Ramdas. He was just this everyday little Indian man, quite short. You wouldn't notice him if he didn't really kind of make you notice him as he did with you and me. Because, as you said earlier, it feels like he has this ability to completely cover his presence in a way.
And that's something that his guru, Maheshwar Babaji, also told him, that you need to go, because he wanted to stay with his guru in the Himalaya mountains. Yeah. But his guru just kept telling him, no, you're going back into society. Yeah. You're not going to be a yogi up in the mountains. And he's like, no, I want to stay here. But no, you have different plans, and you need to be able to cover your state of awareness, your state of consciousness, so you can be relatable to other people. So you can talk to them as person to person, not yogi to disciple. It's so I think there's definitely something to him, that's more to him than we know.
And it felt like when he did this thing to both of us was like kind of confirming that yes, I am the real deal or something like that. And then because the moment after when he turned back to the people, that just vanished, and he was like this normal guy again. Yeah. And I was like kind of struck by the lightning or something about what happened. Yeah. because his presence changed when he turned around and looked me in the eyes. It was like a completely different person in a way.
Yeah, and you could see it from time to time during the satsangs and the retreat as well, because if you start listening to Shriyam, the first thing you will notice is that he's extremely knowledgeable. He has read, he can relate to you if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Hindu, because he has read all the scriptures and he knows them by heart. He even knows the Sanskrit by heart.
Yeah.
And his lectures are really like great for the intellect, if to grasping all this knowledge, and he can explain it in a structured way, which is really easy for everyday people to grasp.
And it's obvious that he has a great love for the old Indian scriptures. He loves to talk about them and explain them. And as you said, he knows them by heart, inside and out. And
and he knows Sufism, has a lot of information about that. He even he stayed also with Krishnamurti, which is another person,
and also a Sufist teacher as well. His guru made him stay with different kind of traditions and teachers to expand his view of spirituality, I guess.
So when you listen to him, he's great. He can explain things to you in a really structured and easy method for you to grasp, and I think that's where his real strengths are. His ability to make the information reachable. And we have to mention when we had these lectures, when we were sitting there listening to him throughout the satsangs, what really struck me is like, I remember on several occasions where he talked something that he talked to the general public, but at the same time it felt like he's talking to me directly. And the moments where I would feel this, he would instantly look at me. Like, he's talking about a general topic, but now I feel like this is really touching me at my ego or the way I am or why I'm acting. And he's looking right at me and it's like, how does he know? How does he know?
I had the same feeling several times. Like, I was sitting there listening as everyone else, and he had this, calm expression talking to everyone. And then he said something, and just for a moment, he just turned his head towards me and looked at me intensely while he said a general message to everyone. But when he looked at me and said this message, things just came up inside me that he's talking about this specific thing about me. And I knew intuitively what he was pointing to in my story, at the same time as it was a general message to everyone. And then when he started to look at others again, this feeling kind of disappeared. It resembled the thing that we had when we first met him. When he looked at you like in this way, the same way that he did that time, you just felt like struck by lightning, and you just knew what I was talking about. And it's I'm not sure if I guess this he did with all the people. And what I can't really grasp, but I don't even know, but what's interesting to discuss is he doing this consciously? Does he know that he's doing this? Or is this basically he's so in tune with the self or with the universe that everything is one, everything is the self. So him looking at me is just him going with the flow. If you understand what I mean. I understand exactly what you mean, but my feeling, I don't know if this is true or not, is that he did know. He felt like this guy that know everything about you. When he looked at you with those eyes, it felt like he knew everything about you. I know you, Magnus. I know exactly what you're going through. I know exactly what you need to work on. And what I said now is about this thing that you're doing, and you need to work on this really hard, Magnus. And then he just turned his eyes away and started talking more, and it felt like, okay, he's right, I need to work on that. And he wasn't really talking to you, he was talking to everyone, but it felt like that. He just, when he saw through me, and just pointed out something that I need to work on. I 100% agree with that. That's the same feeling I got as well when he was talking to me. So
Yeah. So that was just something very special about 3M, and I think if you go back to the very first episode in this podcast, you might remember that I talked about my Kundalini experience.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like I needed to discuss that to get a better understanding of it, why it happened and why it happened to me, basically, or what's the deal with that. And I wanted to ask this question directly to 3M, but it was very hard to get like alone time with him and ask questions, because everyone who was there tried to like go after him like hyenas, asking their own questions.
People around him all the time.
Yeah. And I really wanted to have this answered, and I just kept trying to get the information from him, but I was never able to like get the opportunity to do it. And it was the last day of the retreat, and I wanted to now I really need to do it. I if there's other people, I'll push them aside and I'll ask him. Perhaps not that extreme, but I really wanted to ask the question. And when I sat down for the last day, he started to go through this topic.
Yeah.
And he started to explain everything I had experienced. I got all the answers I needed on that very last day. And he just answered everything. Yeah. All the questions that I had in that lecture. And this felt like, he's talking directly to me. Yeah. You're answering all my questions. And you're sitting there talking to like 100 people. I don't know how many, 50 to 100 people in the room. Yeah. So that was also really, really crazy experience.
Yeah. And it was really amazing. And I also, prior to this weekend, I had a month before, or 2 months or something like that, I had a very special dream about Mahavatar Babaji, which felt like nothing else. The dream felt very different from normal dreams. In the dream, I was in a wooden cabin up in the Himalayan mountains with a bunch of other spiritual seekers as well, and also Neem Karoli Baba, Ramdas's guru, was there. Yeah. But the buzz in the cabin was that Mahavatar Babaji was in the area. Yeah. And they said that very rarely anyone gets to meet him, so don't get too excited. And in the night, when everyone slept, this old man woke me up and said, he's outside now and wants to meet you, run. And I ran out in the middle of the night, and I ran to the backside of the cabin, and there stood Mahavatar Babaji, and he told me 3 things that I needed to know. And then I woke up and felt this dream was really important, and I tried to remember the 3 things, but I was just slipping away as things in dreams can do. But I also knew that it wasn't important.
So he told you on a subconscious level.
Yeah, it was planted in me, so I didn't really have to remember it. But I asked 3M about it, because 3M is the only living person that I know about who have met Mahavatar Babaji and who perhaps have a connection. So I told him about this dream, and he instantly said, it was your initiation to Kriya Yoga. Yeah. Because Kriya Yoga is the spiritual practice that he is practicing and teaches to others.
Yeah, and it's the spiritual practice that Mahavatar Babaji distributed to the world as a way to wake up and a way to do your spiritual practice. And it's mentioned also in the autobiography of a yogi. There's a guru called Lahiri Mayasaya, I think is his name, that also talked very fondly about learning Kriya Yoga from Mahavatar Babaji, or Sri Guru Babaji, as 3M calls him. And it was the same thing. After he had answered all my questions about my Kundalini experience, I went to talk to him. Then I got the possibility to go talk to him, and I asked, like, I had this experience that you talked about during this evening. And he's like, have you had it any more times than once? But no. Okay, that was your initiation into Kriya Yoga. Yeah. And I just remember as well that during the last evening when he talked about the Kriya Yoga, and when he thought he gave it to us as a spiritual practice to do, when he had finished that session and stood up, then the power that I saw from him was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
I just remember like when he stood up, I don't know what it was with him, but it was like I can't even put words to it. Yeah. It's like he just had this presence, like the master walking. Like here it is, here is the tool, and the master just walked away, and I was like, damn. Yeah, that was a wonderful experience, and we're actually going to meet him again in June now, 2018. It's coming back to Switzerland.
Yeah, they talked about it at the retreat that they were going to do a follow-up retreat. So it's being this year, 2018 in June, and if everything goes as planned, we're going there. We have booked our seats, so to speak. Yeah, so it's going to be amazing to meet him again and see what happens this time.
Yeah, and what I liked about 3M during the retreat is that he actually gave you something practically that you can work with.
Yeah.
There's one, because when you listen to the lectures are brilliant, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to a lecture, you learn these things, but if you don't do anything with the information that you have, you're pretty much going to be pretty much the same person as when you walked in there. But if you can take the experience to heart and really see the pointers that he wanted to give you, then you can learn something about yourself. But he also gave a spiritual practical way to like do your spiritual practice. And that was something that I, prior to this meeting, had not had.
Yeah.
So for me, it felt like I was like eureka moment.
Yeah.
Like this is it. This is what I've been looking for.
Yeah, he gave a Kriya Yoga exercise, a basic Kriya Yoga exercise where you basically it's a technique for cleansing the channel for the Kundalini energy.
Yeah.
So that was amazing to be given that to work with. Yeah. And also I would like to mention that the retreat at Villa Unspunnen was, as we said, the week before we was going to India. And a lot of very strange things happened at Villa Unspunnen because we were planning before this to visit the ashrams of Sombari Baba, which we have talked about in previous episodes. Yeah. And he's this really unknown saint of Nainital area, the Himalayan area. And as I said, no one knows about him pretty much, and except that Ram Dass has written a little bit about him in Be Love Now, and also just before we went, K.K. Sade, Neem Karol Baba's disciple, released a book about Sombari Baba. So, but that had just came out a few weeks before this, I think. Yeah. But at Villa Unspunnen, we met two people who had been there.
Yeah. So and we were like sitting down randomly with people for dinner or just hanging out in the evening, and we sat down with two people who had visited Padampur and Kakragat,
like the ashrams of
Sombari Baba.
Sombari Baba that no one knows about, and pretty much very, very few Westerners have ever been there, and two of those was actually at this retreat the week before we were going there. Yeah. It was just such an improbable coincidence.
Yeah, so there was a lot of synchronicities going on when we were visiting this place, and a lot of, I think the reason why our journey to India was so good was because we met these people, because they told us about so much that we needed to think about, and places that suggested that we visit.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have gone to the Haidikam Babaji ashram at all.
Where I had the most amazing experience ever because of these two people. And we wouldn't have gone to a lot of places around Rishikesh if it hadn't been because of 3M.
Yeah.
So everything, I remember thinking it feels like everything is falling into place.
Yeah, exactly.
Before the journey to India. Yeah, and it was just, the journey was amazing as well.
Yeah, so what can we say more about 3M? He has a new book out as well, the continuation of from his first autobiography.
Yeah, basically he talked on the retreat. He gave us some. He talked about some things that are in the new book because it wasn't released when we was at the retreat. But I think it was released about a few weeks after. So we read it on the plane back from India. It's a really interesting book because he has experienced so much things, and only some of it could be in the first book. So he wrote another book.
And I think you need to read the first book before you're ready for the second one, because it's becomes a bit more crazier and crazier for each page.
Even
the first book as well is quite crazy.
Even the first book can be hard to grasp for a lot of people because some of the things he talks about are just so out there. And he actually thought, when he was writing the book, he thought, should I even mention this? Because people would think that I'm just lying. But I think the gurus told him, or intuitively, that because he was dead, that I left his body, that he should talk openly about pretty much everything. But I do think there's even more to it that he have not talked about.
For sure, I think so as well. We'll see if it comes a third book is even crazier than the last two. But what's also struck me just meeting 3M and just seeing how he is with people is you could also see that there's no greed in it. It was completely free to attend it. If you didn't have to pay anything, it was all donations. And the way he greeted every people, he took time for everyone. Obviously he couldn't meet everyone due to time constrictions, but he stayed there for as long as he could. And you could also see that he was a very loving person, genuinely loving person.
This very
cared.
Kind, humble little man that's so lovable.
And he also did the Walk of Hope in Europe as well prior to this, which is the Walk of Hope. He has done it through India. I think he walked the whole country
throughout most of India. He walked as a manifestation, or how do you say it in English?
To raise awareness.
Raise awareness of peace, actually. I think.
Which is a loving message, and he brought that to Europe as well. And I think it's going to actually do that now with in Europe again now, and when it's coming over in June. So if you also want to attend the Walk of Hope, that's a really wonderful thing that you can also attend.
So I would really recommend to read his, especially his autobiographies. He has written some other books as well. I don't know. Have you read any of them?
I have read one more book. It's the Wisdom of the Rishis.
Okay,
that's those books are very good. But it's more talking not so much about his experiences, but more what did the Rishis say. And he explains it in a, as I said before, he explains it in a very easy way to understand. So it's easier for a Western audience to pick it up and understand the concepts and the teachings.
And there's also a lot of material available online. I think his website is the satsangfoundation.org.
We'll link it in the description as well.
So check that out if you're interested of him, or just Google his name, 3M.
And you can find his talks on YouTube and Spotify, and we can really recommend them.
If you have the chance, go meet him. He's amazing.
For sure. But I think that's it for 3M. Or do you have anything more you want to add?
No, I'm fine. I'm good.
All right. Then I think we say thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.
And you can always visit our website, maldorma.com, to check out other material. We have this podcast. This is episode 20, so we have 19 other episodes as well, covering different topics and our own journeys. And we have written a few books that's available on our website, and we write articles, etc.
We try to do a little bit of this or that. Raise awareness.
So please check that out if you like to. And thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.